Dear ladies and gentlemen, we will continue with our next panel of the day, the characteristics of today's youth, social relationships, exploring family, friendships, and community dynamics. The rest of today's presentation features speakers who are PhD candidates or early career academics specializing in the field of youth research. Our first presentation will be delivered by two speakers. Ilona Dóra Debnyi-Fekete, PhD lecturer at the University of Debrecen's Institute of Educational Studies and Cultural Management, alongside Ágnes Réka Dusa, PhD researcher at the University of Debrecen Center for Higher Educational Research and Development.
Good morning, everybody. Yes, my name is Ilona Dóra Debnyi-Fekete, and I'm from the University of Debrecen. And I conducted this research that we're about to present with my colleague, Dr. Ágnes Dusa, and we work at the Center for Higher Education Research and Development Hungary because it's a bigger organization, but we work in the Hungarian part of it. And also we work at the doctoral program on educational sciences. Sorry, let me just adjust this a little bit. Okay. Before we dive into the specifics of our study, we wanted to briefly introduce the research group we work in, and the work we're going to present is very much based on the works of this research group, and that is the International Learning and Teaching Experience Research Group. We call it ILTE, actually. Over the past years, ILTE has conducted a number of research projects focusing on international students, mostly at our university, at the University of Debrecen. And we selected and highlighted the most important publications that have emerged from these efforts. And our present studies also based on these works, actually. Let's talk about the International Learning and Teaching Experience Research Group. It was originally or first established in 2021, and first it just came into being because we were curious how international students lived on our campuses, how they experienced life at our university. But later on, it expanded a little bit, and now we can see that international students from the doctoral program are also a part of it. And lately, students from the undivided teacher training program also joined our work. And actually, they are really doing a good work, and they actively contribute to this work. Our initial quantitative research focused on 6 main areas, and among which the section on intercultural experiences plays a central role. So we conduct research mostly in this area, and in today's presentation we will highlight the 3rd and the 4th subsection of this section. Year by year, the number of higher education students studying in other countries, wanting to study abroad, is growing worldwide, and that is the case here in Hungary as well. We can see a significant growth in international students at our universities, and also in their number and their ratio compared to that of Hungarian students. We can see that while in 2001, 3.4%, in 2016, almost 9%, and of the students in higher education were foreign students, and that ratio in 2020 actually was already 13.5%. According to OECD's 2024 report, this figure had reached 14% by 2022, significantly exceeding both the EU average of 8% and the OECD median of 6%. Spanning 14 faculties, the University of Debrecen hosts approximately 25,000 students, out of which over 7,600 come from abroad. At the start of the 2000s, this number, the number of foreign students or students with foreign citizenships, was under 900, and based on the freshest October 2024 statistics, 7,625 foreign students are studying at the University of Debrecen. So we can actually talk about visible foreigners. The University of Debrecen is actually very unique in the composition according to the countries of origin, contrasted to other large universities in Hungary. At our university, the majority of top-sending countries are not from the European continent. And also the countries who sent above 100 students to our institutions are not from the old continent either. We do have a large number of students from neighboring countries because we're in the Partium region, which is like a border region, basically. We do have students from those countries as well, from the neighboring countries. However, they are mostly of Hungarian ethnicity, as they enroll into the Hungarian programs instead of the English ones. Something about the theoretical background. Several studies have dealt with the relation to the culture of the host country, acculturation, and intercultural sensitivity. We mentioned only three names, the three most important names, Bennett, Berry, and Brown also, but we also rely on the findings of several Hungarian examinations as well. On the left side of the slide, you can see the most important factors that are present in the daily lives of international students at the university. Let's get into the methodology part of our research. Our research was based on a questionnaire of the ILTA, the International Learning and Teaching Experience Research Group that I already mentioned. The questionnaire was sent via the Neptune system 3 times, actually, between December 2021 and June 2022. Due to the low response rate, however, we had to apply in-person questioning as well. We don't really know why that happened. We're still kind of trying to figure out why the low response rate, but it was only 7%. We originally thought that since we wanted to ask international students, we thought that maybe because it was about them, they would be more involved in it, but it was very, very hard to get them interested, get them involved. They were very reluctant to actually speak about their experiences, to say anything about their experiences. Yes, the online questionnaire was based on Google form, and the data were recorded and analyzed in SPSS. After data cleansing, the sample size of our database was 434, actually. We can see that that's, at that time, the number of international students was around 7,000. So still very low. For analysis, we use index preparation, variance analysis, and cross-tab analysis.
And I will talk about the results. As we mentioned earlier, one of the question blocks in our survey focused on integration into the local culture, which is very difficult to measure, but we tried. We listed various cultural conception options, which you can also see on the slide, such as forming relationships, trying local food, and more. And the respondent students could answer either yes or no to each item. Based on their responses, we created clusters using K-means cluster analysis, and 4 types of student clusters emerged. We named the first group introverted tasters because they are open to trying Hungarian food and reading about the Hungarian history and customs. So there is some openness in them, but this type of activities does not require direct contact with locals, and that's why we call them introverted. tasters. This group included 137 respondents. The second group, which named extroverted omnivores, showed a strong interest in almost every type of Hungarian culture we listed, except Hungarian music. However, they traveled the most, visited traditional places in Hungary the most, read about Hungarian history beforehand. The third cluster is called local meeting xenophiles. They earned this name because of their openness and the fact that they have relationships with Hungarian people, have Hungarian friends and have spoken with Hungarians before. They also listen Hungarian music. This group was the smallest. Last but not least, we have the cultural theaters. They have not engaged with any of the elements of the Hungarian culture. They haven't tried Hungarian food, haven't read about Hungarian history or customs. They haven't really traveled within Hungary. A total of 126 international students were classified into this group. Okay, what do we know about these groups and how can we describe them? Using ANOVA and crosstabs, we compared the groups along several demographic variables. Introverted tasters are mostly men. They are the youngest group, and the majority came from African countries. They have not been studying in Debrecen for very long. Most of them are enrolled in STEM majors, and they typically speak one or two languages, usually their mother tongue and or English. Extroverted omnivores include more women than men, and it is the oldest group. Most of them came from European, American, or Far Eastern countries. They are overrepresented in so-called society majors, and they speak 4 or 5 languages, including Hungarian. Local meeting xenophiles are predominantly women as well. They are overrepresented in medical-related majors and typically speak 3 languages, one of which is Hungarian. And cultural theaters are mostly men, many of whom came from African countries. They speak 1 or 2 languages, but not Hungarian. And interestingly, the group shows a split regarding how long they live in Debrecen. Many of them arrived only a few months before completing the questionnaire, while others have been living and studying in Debrecen for 2 years. This suggests that while some may not yet have the chance, the opportunity to meet the Hungarian culture, others may be consciously choosing to remain isolated. And it's a very interesting split between them. Moving on the cultural shock, as mentioned earlier, cultural distance influences how easily someone can adapt to a new environment and how open they are to the host culture. In general, the greater cultural distance, the more intense the culture shock tends to be. We included a 16-item question block on culture shock, and using factor analysis, maximum likelihood method with Varimax rotation, we identified 5 distinct factors of culture shock, and these were the dimension of optimistic feelings, a factor of homesickness, the item groups of depression and isolation, variables about seeking connection, finding connections with others, and the 5th factor was the rejection of the host culture. And we were interested in whether there were a connection between the factors of culture shock and the clusters of the attitudes toward Hungarian culture. And there was significant result, but only in 2 cases, the 4th and the 5th factors. Rejection of the host culture, it was the 5th, was most typical among cultural theaters, but interestingly, it also appeared with lower factor scores among local meeting xenophiles, even though they are familiar with Hungarian culture, or maybe because they are familiar with Hungarian culture. Introverted tasters were less likely to reject the host culture, and the extroverted omnivores were the least likely to do so. The contact-seeking factor is unsurprisingly the feature of extroverted omnivores and xenophiles. And one additional observation, although the differences between the clusters in terms of the first factor, the optimistic feelings, were not statistically significant, but a trend can still be observed. The highest factor score was seen among local meeting xenophiles, who are more familiar with locals, while cultural dieters had the highest scores, but in the opposite way, downward direction. This correlation is not statistically significant, but it is still revealing. To summarize, we can say that distinct groups have emerged based on their attitudes toward Hungarian culture, and each with own specific characteristics. It will be important to find effective ways to reach out to more closely off clusters and support their better integration into university life and into the Hungarian culture. It is important to emphasize that a limitation of this research is that not based on representative data collection, so the findings cannot be generalized. Nevertheless, we believe that this study contributes in a deeper understanding of the challenges faced by international students studying in Hungary or in Debrecen. And we are continuing our research within the ILTA research group, and now we are using qualitative methods and focusing on more specific topics, such as identifying what kind of support would be most effective in helping international students succeed in their learning process. And thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much. Our next presenter is Fatema Farugi, PhD candidate at the University of Debrecen, Doctoral Department of Educational Sciences, originally hailing from Dubai.
Good day, everyone, and thank you for this opportunity to present my research today, which is, I think, very important for Iranian diaspora around the world. I'm going to talk about International Baccalaureate Diploma Program and the generation of Persian bilingual students who are incomprehensible to their parents. They do not communicate well with their parents. I will briefly introduce the topic, talk about the slangs and language specification, generations and their differences, digital immigrants and digital natives, briefly talk about English as lingua franca and international schools, followed by International Baccalaureate Diploma Program, a brief introduction for those who are not familiar with it. Then we will take a look at the Iranians in UAE and the statement of the problem, methodology results, and then I will conclude with some references that I have used for this paper. But before starting anything, let's test your slang knowledge for new generation. Who knows what goat, crashy, or requestion means? As I knew, that's the case everywhere, not just here in Hungary. These are slangs used by the new generation and completely unknown to us as parents, the previous generation, and educators, of course. So this happens due to generational changes, and generation as an umbrella term gives different definitions for every researcher in what they do. But to put it simply, it's just to say that people who are born around the same time with common characteristics are considered from the same generation, and they carry identifying characteristics based on cultural events, social elements, ideologies, authorities. Even shocking incidents such as war or pandemic can influence every generation. But in 1991, Strauss and Howie did a research and came up with a generational theory. And according to them, people born in different times differ in beliefs and their perspective. And they can be grouped by significant social and historical events. They have the ability to change previous mindset and create new aspects. And according to Duffy's categorization, baby boomers are those who are born from 1945 to 1965. Generation X are born 1966 to 1979. The millennials are born from 1980s to 1995. Gen Zs are born in 1996 to 2010. And Gen Alpha, which I added to this categorization, are those children who are born from 2011 and onwards until today. Within generational categorization, we can have another categorization of digital natives and digital immigrants as proposed by Prensky in 2001. So digital natives, Gen Zs and afterwards, have the ability to process information really fast. They can multitask, they are fluent in technology, and they are usually bilinguals. But digital immigrants, their parents, educators, and any generation before that are not fluent in technology. They still make hard copies of documents. They prefer in-person meeting instead of online meetings, and are not usually bilinguals. This all happens, I think, due to the use of English as lingua franca. Again, lingua franca is an umbrella term, and we use it for common language that people use when they have different mother tongues. And in the older time, in previous century, this happened due to colonialization and now USA's cultural influence. But this has caused English to become modern-day lingua franca. And also, there is a categorization of Catchru's. I don't know if you are familiar with it. So he categorizes English speakers into inner circle for native speakers of the UK, USA, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and the outer circle, the colonized countries such as India, Pakistan, Nigeria, and expanding circle like any other country that uses English, Hungary included, UAE, Iran, those countries who have their own mother tongue. In international schools, I came up with all the terms as an umbrella term because they have many different definitions into them. So international schools are used as an umbrella term for those expatriates who were resided outside of their home countries after the Second World War. And the first international school based on this categorization is the Geneva's International School, which was established in 1924. In 1951, International School Association was established. In 1964, International Baccalaureate Diploma Program, which is the main focus of my research, was established in Switzerland. And in 1968, IB organization was founded. And the goal of having international school organizations and the schools themselves was to provide an educational system which is accepted by higher education around the world, instead of offering a certain British, American, Australian diploma for those students who graduate from high school. Now, since this is about UAE and Dubai specifically, and the Iranians in that country, I would like to give you some information about them. So, UAE's government never gave out any statement, any official statement of the number of Iranian population in Dubai, but it is estimated to be over 500,000 people there. And there are logical reasons for that. The first thing is it's a relatively easy life in Dubai compared to Iran. There are high number of fellow countrymen, obviously 500,000 people, so it's too much. And there are no pressure on women regarding clothing and appearances. UAE is a Sunni section of the Islam, and Iran is Shi'i, so they are more secular. The Dubai Sunni section is more secular. Language of instruction is English, which is appealing to parents most of the time, and the only educational system available to expatriates in Dubai is international schooling system. So now we have a problem here that we need to solve. There are different generational specifications between millennials and Gen Z's parents and students. And there is a deep gap between the two. For instance, parents have pride in their history, their culture, their language, their use of simile, proverbs, satire, literary devices, synonym and antonyms is available and practiced, used to practice in traditional Persian education. But in international school and international education that is offered to Iranian students in Dubai, this is not the case. So there is no mother tongue classes, Persian mother tongue classes. However, IB diploma program has a language A examination which gives the students a freedom to choose a mother tongue for a second language option of the diploma. And they need to mix and match, read, study 9 sources, mix and match with 3 different genres, 3 different times, 3 different countries, and 3 work in translation. To have a look again at the differences we can see between parents, educators, and teenagers. Parents are not digital natives, and they, like actual immigrants, their knowledge of both technology and the English language varies by person and to different degrees. But teenagers are usually bilingual, even if not multilinguals in UAE. English is their dominant language. Their knowledge of the mother tongue is diminishing to a foreign language. And they use their own vocabulary, terms, and slang, which is totally unknown to parents and educators. For this research, I used a Google form questionnaire where I asked one student and one of the parents to complete the questionnaire. 37 questions. In each questionnaire, 32 participants. We ask parents questions about teen slangs, and we asked them not to seek help, but parents did cheat. We know that because of the results that we got. They went online and searched for the answers. However, the students had to answer parents' slangs, but they did not cheat because we did all the questionnaires before each online class that we had together. So we sat in a Google Meet and asked them to fill the questionnaire before that. So I know that they did not cheat. The average age, as you can see, for parents is 41 to 50, and for students 17 to 19 as a requirement of IB's diploma program. And parents were very confident that 20 out of 32 said that they could fully understand their children, while the students said they could not. 23 out of 32 did not understand fully what their parents said. Here is the fun part. So these are parents' slangs and the student response. The first one is Mama Jim Jim Halwa. It's some kind of a halwa or dessert. I'm sure you are familiar with halwa as a Turkish name. 25 incorrect answers. Tasdiq is an Arabic word used for driving license, and 28 incorrect answers. Fokoli is a name for a person who has recently traveled back home from a Western country. 26 incorrect answers. And Taj, and not your Thai card, Hungarian Thai card is a Taj, literally means crown, but In this context, it means traditional Sufi hat. Sufi people wear it, and 27 incorrect answers. With children slangs, we faced a catastrophe here. Everything was so bad. So Eskimosi, according to teenagers, means a cold-hearted principal at the school. Qomqome, which means water bottle, the first one had 24 incorrect answers. The second one, qomqome, with 0 correct answer, means water bottle, but in this case, it means a person who comes from the city of Qom in Tehran, in Iran. Furugh Farrokhzad is the name of a very famous female Persian contemporary poet. When used, it means a beautiful brunette girl. And the last one, cactus, with 31 incorrect answer, means a policeman. So they don't like them, so they call them cactus. So at first I thought maybe this deep gap that I see here would be because of the gender, maybe parents, fathers know less or know more, but I didn't see any significant difference here. Also, age did not have any effect on the answers that I got from the students. So it was a pilot study with very, very low number of participants. At first, I only had 14, but then they talked to each other and friends were interested and parents were interested, so the number rose to 32. As I mentioned, we asked them not to cheat, but parents did cheat. And IBM SPSS software were used for the data analysis, and I manually added the data there. There were 13 general questions, 24 slang-related questions. All the students were bilinguals and some of them multilinguals. Most of the parents were monolinguals with some knowledge of a second language. As I mentioned, I can see the gap here, even with this small number of participants. Fathers are less likely to understand their children, and there is a cultural reason for that. Work commitments for fathers who spend more time outside their house. Mothers are mostly stay-at-home and more familiar with their children. Also, the English knowledge of parents is unknown to us. So we know that teenagers should be bilinguals in international schools in Dubai. But parents do not sit any English examination. And we just know they have some knowledge. They should have some knowledge of English in order to live in Dubai. It's a language that they use in society. Also, teenagers are both Persian and English fluent in both these languages, and there is always a third language involved as well. To conclude, I would like to say that this communicational gap is gradually affecting Persian diaspora around the world. And parents and educators, I think, are to somehow blame for it, because they think the knowledge of English is even more important than the knowledge of the mother tongue. And the use of English outside their school is also the case for Dubai, at least. And it's becoming common that the learning of or acquisition of English as a lingua franca is at the cost of losing a mother tongue. And when a mother tongue or a language, any language is lost, it's not simply losing a communicational tool, but we are losing identity, culture, sense of belonging, and roots of every person involved. And in societies or in countries such as UAE, where English is the language of instruction in schools, Arabic is the language of the country itself, A mother tongue is always the case for expatriates living there, and a second language requirement like French, German, Russian is the requirement of the language. The students are brought up to be multilinguals. There is no other way around this. They have to be multilinguals. And since parents are not fluent in English and they are digital immigrants with extremely busy lives, while Gen Zs or their children are use their digitally influenced slangs, they are incomprehensible to each other. They cannot communicate correctly. And also, we have to keep in mind that not every school offers the mother tongue as a second language option. And the mother tongue is Persian, at least, I don't know about other countries, but Persian is diminishing from the diaspora society in Dubai. And it's a concern for me because as human beings, we are unique by culture, by our beliefs, by language behavior. And in countries like UAE, where Arabic and Islamic society is there, this has become a concern for that country as well because they call it, I just read a paper, a local Arab researcher was calling it a new disability. So their own teenagers are not fluent in Arabic. So they use Latin alphabet, but type in Arabic words, and they cannot communicate properly. We have the same thing in Persian. We call it Finglish. So we use Latin words, but words are in Latin letters, but words are in Persian. So that's the case here, and it's really worrying for diasporas especially. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much. Our third and final presenter from this panel is Miklós Györgyevics, lecturer at the Károly Gáspár University of Reformed Church, director at the Századvég Foundation, and PhD candidate in the Eötvös Loránd University Doctoral School of Sociology.
Thank you very much, the invitation and the kind reception. And I really thank you, the previous presenter. I don't see you, because I'm a father of 4 children, and I absolutely feel the same. They speak for me Hungarian, but I can't understand them. This is the same. Okay. My name is Miklós Györgyevics, and I'm here to speak about a calculation that I made by the European Social Survey data. And the title of my presentation is Together Alone, which seems a paradox, doesn't it? At first. What does this mean, we are together and yet alone? How is this possible? With my calculation, I'd like to draw attention to a social phenomenon that many of us probably perceive in our own environment, but find difficult to grasp precisely. In other words, there is clearly a need in the values of young people in Europe, in modern Europe, for a sense of community, of caring for each other, and loyalty. At the same time, however, that seems to be a decline in real community activity and a very low level of interpersonal trust, particularly in Central and Eastern Europe. And this dichotomy led me to the question that is the starting point of my presentation. Is it possible or not that younger Europeans are increasingly looking for community, but are becoming increasingly lonely? I would like to illustrate somehow this seemingly contradiction in terms of an empirical study of the relationships between interpersonal trust and young people's attitudes towards their communities in Europe based on the data from the European Social Survey. The concept of community may seem simple for you, but at the first glance. Because in social science it has many meanings. It can refer to close relationships, of course, such as family, friends, or local communities, work communities, but also to broader social formations based on values, identity, or goals, for example. And according to the Hungarian psychologist Elemir Hankis, the four characteristics of community are shared interest, purpose, values, and it's very hard to translate, but a sense of we-ness. That is not sense of me, but sense of we. Even antique philosophy emphasized that man is a being of community. But modern sociology, following Tönnies' distinction, has pointed out that the traditional organic communities means Gemeinschaft have been replaced by interest-based societies, means Gesellschaft. And in the 12th and 20th and 21st centuries, community theories have focused on the concept of social capital. Just look at Coleman or Putnam, which is constituted by shared norms, values, relationships, and trust, which are the glue that holds a society together. So community is not only an emotional bond, but also the structural base for social cooperation and the functioning of democracy, maybe. So my presentation will explore the forms of this in the lives of young people today, and in particular the role of trust. Okay. Maybe most research agrees on one thing, that there is still a strong demand among young people for caring for each other, for loyalty in community, and for connection. And at the attitudinal level, there is therefore a positive trend in many cases. Young people think it is important to help others, to be trusted in friend, and to actively pay attention to their environment. But at the same time, there is another trend in the opposite direction. Real community participation, for example, activity, is on the decline in many countries. You will see it. The third and perhaps most critical dimension is the very low level of interpersonal trust in many countries, especially in the post-socialist region, post-Soviet region. Many people feel that they cannot trust others, and that is better to remain cautious, even if they otherwise believe that cooperation and care are important in principle. This is the paradox on which my presentation focuses. How it is possible that community values are normatively present, but in the absence of interpersonal trust and activity, they cannot be realized. Some young people are theoretically pro-community, but not communitarian, caring, but not relating, wanting to be together, but not trusting in other people. This is the social dichotomy that I will illustrate with my empirical data. My aim was to examine the evolution and interaction of three key factors: community, caring, and community activity and interpersonal trust among young people in Europe, with a particular focus on the paradox between them. The empirical analysis was based on the data from the ninth wave of the European Social Survey from 2018, which was conducted in 29 countries. And the advantage of this database that is based on data collected before the pandemic, so the impact of the pandemic did not bias either the methodology or the respondents' behavior. However, I acknowledge that the data is indeed a bit old, but at the same time, the European Social Survey 2022 survey only provides data for 11 countries, and it's not enough for me. And the 2020 survey was conducted with a hybrid methodology due to the pandemic, So the results are unreliable, and the questions I'm interested in it were not asked in all countries. So I therefore had to use the data from 2018. As you can see, I measured the community dimensions as the follows. I measured attitudes of community caring with 2 questions on the importance of caring for the well-being of 2 others and the importance of loyalty to friends. For social activity, I also used 2 questions, one asking whether the respondents participates in social activities and the other measuring the frequency of these encounters or meetings. The third closely examined dimension was interpersonal trust, assessed through 3 classic questions: whether the respondent generally trusts others, whether they believe people tend to take advantage of them, and whether people are more helpful or selfish in general. And finally, I transformed them into a single variable using the so-called principal component analysis. And following the theoretical and methodological background presented so far, short timeline overview how community attitudes of young people in Europe have changed over the last 2 decades. And the chart will show 4 different curves that illustrate the evolution of young Europeans' community attitudes and trust levels between 2002 and 2018. The blue line indicates the trend in interpersonal trust, that is how much young people trust other people in general. It can be seen that this trust fell sharply between 2006 and 2012. I think not unaffected by the aftermath of the global economic crisis, and then rose sharply in 2014 and 2016, before falling again in 2018, showing that young people's interpersonal trust is not stable but sensitive to changes in the socio-economic environment. The light blue dotted line shows the evolution of social activity. This curve shows an essentially stagnant or slightly decreasing trend, especially in the early 2010s. In other words, young people are becoming less involved in community activities or less likely to socialize face-to-face. Although it has increased slightly in the last year examined, the stagnation and decline would be broadly in line with other international research, showing that personal participation is gradually declining as a result of digitalization and individualization. And the orange dotted line shows the importance of community caring, that is a commitment to the well-being of others. And here we see a slight but steady increase that indicates that young people are replacing increasing importance on caring and loyalty, but until 2016 this trend was the opposite of the trend in activity. The desire for commitment was increasing, but the social activity was decreasing a bit, and eventually these 2 values met again somewhat in 2018. That's why I created another composite variable. This is shown by the yellow line. I named this the communitarianism index, which is a weighted average of community care and the community activity. Given the stronger correlation between social activity and community caring in 2018, I will use this indicator in the following figure. This figure shows the distribution of the 2 most important factors, interpersonal trust and communitarianism, by country in a coordinate system in 2018. The horizontal x-axis shows the interpersonal trust. The vertical y-axis shows the level of communitarianism. As you can see, the distribution of points representing the countries described a kind of U-shaped curve to which polynomial regression fits the best. And as you can see, the communitarianism is typically low in countries with medium levels of trust, while at the 2 extremes, very high or very low trust, you can even see higher communitarianism, and I will explain why is this at the end of the presentation. And in the top right sector, we find the countries with both high levels of interpersonal trust and communitarianism, mainly in Western Europe countries, where young people have both very high levels of interpersonal trust and a strong community orientation. And the interesting exception is Finland, where trust is extremely high, but communitarianism is just only above the average. The bottom left sector fits well with theoretical expectations. Here we typically find low communitarianism with low trust, for example in Slovakia, Poland, Latvia or Lithuania, and or Hungary, where the average interpersonal trust is combined with extremely low communitarianism, so we Hungarians should reflect on this. And nevertheless, because the pattern is not linear, the top left sector contains countries where interpersonal trust is lower, but where communitarianism is higher than the average, even in Serbia, Bulgaria, or Montenegro. So low interpersonal trust in society is not necessarily a barrier to family and friendship ties, for example, in the Balkans, where loyalty and solidarity can often be expressed as more restricted relationships. And finally, and very interestingly, the bottom right sector of the graph is almost empty. That is, it is not typical to have low communitarianism with above average trust. And this confirms that the existence of trust typically implies some degree of communitarianism. And I color-coded the countries into 3 groups based on the Human Development Index. Countries with high Human Development Index, these are the blue ones, are mostly in the top right sector, while countries with lower HDI, these are the red ones, are either in the bottom left or top left sector. And finally, I have framed the countries that were once part of the Soviet Union's sphere of interest. These 12 countries show a clear pattern. Most of them are in zones of low trust and moderate to weak communitarianism. Some of them, such as Croatia, Slovenia, and Czech Republic or Estonia, seem to have moved away from this group and closer to the Western European pattern. So overall, my figure illustrates that the relationship between trust and communality or communitarianism, which is very hard to pronounce, is neither homogeneous and nor linear. Interpersonal trust is an important but not exclusive condition for communitarian connection, especially when historical, regional, and developmental differences are taken into account. And my final slide, I wonder what social, historical, and cultural factors might be behind the different patterns. First of all, there is a permanent lack of trust in post-socialist countries. Several studies confirm that the heritage of the socialist past, in particular suspicion of institution and the experience of forced communities, strongly influences the level of interpersonal trust today. According to Rothstein and Stoll and Letke, these countries still operate with lower levels of generalized trust decades after the regime change. On the other hand, this does not mean that there is low communitarianism everywhere. The example of the Balkans clearly showed that particularistic trust in family, friends, local connection is strong. This phenomenon, as described by Fukuyama, indicates that trust and communitarianism do not necessarily go hand in hand in the Western model. At the same time, community participation is stronger in Western European countries where interpersonal trust is generally higher. This is partly due to the existence of a stable, inclusive and reliable institutional framework in these countries maybe, and as Putnam has emphasized, a well-functioning democratic and welfare structure strengthens social capital and trust in the long term. Development differences also play an important role, I think. Countries with a higher human development index tend to have better indicators of trust and communitarianism, although not exclusively so. The combination of economic, social, and educational infrastructure creates an environment that is conducive to the development of social ties. And finally, the cultural values and the degree of individualization are also decisive. It is therefore a question whether it is true that while in Western Europe individualism does not necessarily exclude community engagement, indeed it is often a condition for conscious community building. In Central and Eastern Europe, collectivism often takes a closed group-specific form rather than a broad social cohesion. So to sum up, we can say that the relationships between interpersonal trust and communality is not mechanical but deeply embedded in historical and cultural context, and this is why it is reasonable to take a region-specific approach when analyzing youth community patterns in Europe. And the paradox of together alone in the title is not just a rhetorical turn of phrase from me, but an actual social experience. For some young people, caring is important but not active. Some of them are loyal but not trusting, eager for community but not communitarian. And it is important to underline that this is not a general youth crisis but one of many patterns. And communitarianism is therefore not dead. It is just in transition, I think, and understanding this transition requires a region-specific, historically sensitive and institutional approach. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you for all the presentations and for your attention. Now we will have a lunch break. Thank you.